Tonight, a healthcare system in crisis.
Someone is making profit off of the taxpayers and the people of Newfoundland and Labrador. And somebody in Newfoundland and Labrador, like the Auditor General, needs to investigate how we got to this point, spending that much money.
Outrage over the province spending tens of millions on travel nurses to plug holes in a broken healthcare system.
Shoreline protection and erosion control in 8 communities across this province.
This is real, so let's get proactive in making sure that we're protecting communities.
What does it all mean? I'll break it down for you. That's tonight on Here and Now.
I'm live in CWT Indian Bay this evening for the 30th anniversary of their winter carnival. We've got lots of fun activities to talk about, as well as the forecast. Some weather on the way. We'll talk all about it when I come back in a little bit.
This is CBC Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. There are calls tonight for the Auditor General to investigate this province's use of travel nurses. This after a report found the province is spending hundreds of dollars an hour for fill-in nurses. Peter Cowan explains.
Someone is making profit off of the taxpayers and the people of Newfoundland and Labrador. And somebody in Newfoundland and Labrador, like the Auditor General, needs to investigate.
Yvette Coffey was startled to see the numbers on just how much the province is paying to hire out-of-province travel nurses. The investigation by the Globe and Mail found the province spent $35.6 million over just 5 months last year. One private company, Canadian Health Labs, was paid more than $300 an hour for each nurse under contracts that were handed out without competition. And there was $1.5 million paid to the company to cover meals, except nurses were told they had to feed themselves.
The numbers are staggering, and there needs to be an investigation into how this money got paid out to this one company.
The opposition says if these nurses are needed, it's clear there needs to be better oversight.
We need some internal controls in place here. But the bigger picture is, Peter, where is the plan for the Liberal government to wean themselves off travel nurses?
The amount of money that is being paid for agency nursing is not sustainable.
The health minister says they're working to recruit more nurses internationally so the province doesn't have to pay for expensive travel nurses. And they're still being used today in many areas to keep the health system running.
We have pockets throughout the province where we see a reduction in agency nursing. We have pockets throughout the province where we haven't seen a reduction yet. Areas that are harder to recruit to.
The Auditor General's office says she's aware of concerns and is considering whether to launch an investigation. Peter Cowan, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, the union representing fish harvesters is expected to pay up for encouraging a strike last spring that saw fishermen tie up their boats and refuse to fish for crab. An independent arbitrator has ruled that the FFAW broke the rules and owes seafood processors for damages. Here, Nesmar Quinn has that story.
Seafood processors say they didn't want to file a grievance, but they did to keep this from happening again. Protests outside the Confederation building, a total shutdown of the province's lucrative crab fishery.
The primary reason in this case is to avoid a situation like transpired last year. This is not about damages, this is about the principle.
Last spring, harvesters delayed the start of the crab season by 6 weeks, tying up their boats to protest the low price of crab. An action that the Processors Association says was led by the union.
There's not going to be any crab until this thing is sorted out.
And now, in a decision handed down on February 7th, an independent arbitrator agrees the fisheries union broke the rules.
Really what amounts to economic warfare to extract, in this particular case, a better price outside of the statutory regime. And given, in our view, that transpired last year, we felt it was appropriate to launch a grievance.
The Processors Association isn't saying exactly what damages it wants to recoup for its members' losses and costs last year. But with the crab season just weeks away, it is hoping ongoing negotiations with the FFAW will result in an agreement that will see a lot of this and none of this.
Stability is a very important part of any industry. We need stability in the fishery sector, and we need a system that promotes working together to create more value.
The FFAW can appeal the arbitrator's decision. So far, it hasn't responded to CBC's requests for comment. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, St. John's lawyer is calling for a public inquiry into the most recent death at Her Majesty's Penitentiary. 35-year-old Seamus Flynn was an inmate at the St. John's prison when he died in early December. Now, while police are investigating his death and the lead up to it, lawyer Bob Buckingham says more needs to be done. Ariana Kelland has the latest from our newsroom. Ariana.
Well, Carolyn, Bob Buckingham is calling on the province's chief medical examiner to do something he has never done before. He wants Dr. Nash Dennick to call for a public inquiry, similar to a coroner's inquest.
He has the authority, he has the ability, he can put it together. I think we need to have a real strong investigation into this.
Seamus Flynn was taken by ambulance from the prison on December 1st and died early the next morning. His mother says Dennick told her that her son had influenza, which morphed into a bacterial infection. He had severe pneumonia and became septic. Now, Buckingham says he receives regular calls with complaints over medical and dental care at HMP.
I have one person who called and said that they were ill for 4 days and have no recollection of 4 days because of the circumstances they were in terms of having a fever and stuff like that.
The Fatalities Investigation Act gives the Chief Medical Examiner the power to recommend an inquiry to the Justice Minister under certain circumstances. A death in custody is one of those. Now, in an email to me in December, Dennick said it would be similar to a coroner's inquest, which we do see in other provinces and countries. Dennick said he is not aware of this ever being called here in this province. Buckingham says now is the time to start. Now, as for this case, Dennick says his investigation, which differs from an inquiry, is ongoing into Seamus Flynn's death, and he has nothing further to add for now. Ariana Kelland, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, a St. John's man who broke into a Cowan Heights home and sexually assaulted a teenager has been deemed a high risk to reoffend. He now has the chance to defend himself, and if that fails, he could spend the rest of his life in jail. Here now's Malone Mullen reports.
Stephen Hopkins is no stranger to this courtroom. He was in here 10 years ago after he stabbed a man in self-defense, and again in 2019 after attacking 2 women on Long Pond Trail. Only a year later, he was back, this time for sexually assaulting a teenager. He represented himself in that trial, a strategy that delayed proceedings and did little to keep him from going back to jail. That criminal history is what's fueling the Crown's request to have him labeled a dangerous offender. It's one of the most serious matters a person can run into in a courtroom. That's because the convicted person may never get out of prison. They're deemed too high of a risk to be allowed their freedom. This week, a judge is hearing arguments for why or why not Hopkins should be removed from society, perhaps permanently. A major part of those arguments is a thorough psychiatric report. The doctor who wrote it testified yesterday that Hopkins is at a high risk of reoffending, that he didn't seem interested in treatment to control his sex drive, and believes that women owe him sexual gratification. The report says he shows an inability to restrain himself and that he believes his crimes are justified. At one point during his assessment, Hopkins told the doctor he believed he had the right to women and to sexual release because he paid his taxes. The doctor noted he also made sexual comments toward Waterford Hospital staff during his evaluation. The report says while Hopkins displays traits of psychopathy, he doesn't meet the full criteria for the disorder. The doctor found he did show a concerning pattern of behavior, though, concluding that Hopkins is an opportunist who repeatedly takes advantage of vulnerable strangers, and that the history of complaints against him shows an escalation of the risk he's willing to take.
Hopkins has rated his own risk of reoffending at 16%. He has the rest of this week to call witnesses, including himself. Malone Mullen, CBC News, St. John's.
The head of an advocacy group in St. John says it's seeing demand for safe drug services skyrocket. The number of people looking for things like naloxone kits, clean paraphernalia, and drug testing strips from the province's AIDS committee has tripled in the last 2 years. The testing strips alone cost more than $1 each, and the group has given out 200,000 of them. Demand is so high, the province upped the group's budget by $360,000. All of this comes as police investigate 6 recent sudden deaths, which they believe to be drug-related, including a death in St. Anthony.
There has been a change. I can only base that on the amount of supplies that are going into rural communities, and that has tripled over the last 3 to 4 years. And also we set up a new swap site in Clarenville, Bonavista, and that was basically as a result of the amount of supplies that we were sending to that district. And that's really how we can indicate that drug use in rural communities is very active. So obviously there's access.
Coming to you live from CWT Indian Bay area today because we are here celebrating the 30th anniversary of their winter carnival. Lots on the go this week. Things kicked off on Sunday with the wine and cheese event, and I know that they are very happy that lots of snow has fallen because lots of outdoor activities planned as well. Some yesterday, some indoor activities as well. In fact, tonight we were supposed to be inside at the Lions Hall for the Italian night where everybody's enjoying a lovely warm meal and some Italian food with a band playing as well. We are going to talk to some organizers about that a little later in the show just to get a sense of what's happening over the next week or so here. But we're also going to talk about the weather. Don't worry, there's lots of that in the lots of weather in the forecast as we head through the next couple of days. We'll get into all of that and a lot more when I come back a little later in the show.
Great, thanks so much, Ashley. Well, 8 at-risk communities are getting some added reinforcement against shoreline erosion. It's all about combating the effects of climate change and incorporating lessons learned from post-tropical storm Fiona. Here Now's Colleen Connors explains.
8 communities, 10 projects, millions of dollars, money to mitigate any future damage caused by coastal erosion and climate change.
Like, we've all seen how climate is changing. I was down on the southwest coast yesterday and spoke to 2 treasured old fishermen and how they've seen the difference over the 40, 50 years that they've been on the water. So this is real. So let's get proactive in making sure that we're protecting communities.
Protecting the communities by protecting the shoreline with things like armor stone, new culverts, guardrails, stabilizing eroding embankments. Communities from Old Perlican to Cox's Cove are part of this, with Channel Portabass getting a large chunk of the funding. This renewed focus, thanks to the destruction of Fiona, which devastated the coastline in a matter of mere hours.
We saw that storm surge, was that 1 in 100 years, 1 in a 500-year storm. I think most of us will say that this is going to be a more frequent event for Newfoundland and Labrador, and we've got to look at those communities that are most exposed, most at risk, and to support them. And we've learned a lot, and we know we have to move some housing and other buildings away from the immediate shore.
Today's announcement is part of climate change preparedness, but officials here realize it may only offer a quick fix.
So we are responding. Obviously, we're bringing our engineering expertise to these communities as well, and to talk with them as to what is the best response. And we will continue to work on that.
And look, are we going to put armor stand around the whole island? That's not feasible to do, right? But we need to put them in the key pressure point areas, to say, right? And I'm sure there will be more.
And if previous storms are any indicator of what's to come, it's protection that will surely be needed. While the money for these big projects was announced today, the armor stone and the guardrails will not be going up in these communities until the spring-summer construction season. Colleen Connors, CBC News, Corner Brook.
Some shrimp harvesters from this province are in Grande Rivière, Quebec today, lending their voices in protest. They're joined alongside harvesters from the Gaspé Peninsula and New Brunswick. All are upset with the DFO's recent allocation for redfish this season, saying the share is too low and will cost existing harvesters their jobs.
Why would you tell people who have the boats, the knowledge, the expertise, the plant owners with the workers and the expertise and the infrastructure, why would you tell them that you're taking everything away from them and you're going to give it to someone who got to go and buy boats?
I had my own enterprise 50 plus years. I had me ups and downs, I had me struggles, like all our other counterparts. We found a way through it. Prices wasn't in our favor sometimes, quotas wasn't in our favor lots of times. But I never ever thought the day would come when our government of Canada would take my livelihood away from me.
Well, Grande Rivière is where the federal fisheries minister's main constituency office is located. Deanne Laboutier said in a statement today that government understands how difficult the situation is for shrimp harvesters. She says Ottawa's allocation not only respects the leading role Nova Scotia has historically played in this fishery, but also increases the historical shares of each of the other provinces. She goes on to say that she's determined to keep the lines of communication open with industry, Aboriginal communities and provincial counterparts so that together we can overcome the climate challenges currently facing our coastal communities. The province is reviewing the minimum wage and wants input from the public. By law, Newfoundland and Labrador has to conduct a review of the hourly rate every 2 years. People are being asked to give their feedback either through an online questionnaire or in writing by March 16th. In April, the province's minimum wage is set to rise from $15 to $15.60 per hour.
It's been decades since Mizell Joe first put his name forward to be a member of the Band Council here at the Miakapig First Nation in Conn River.
It took a lot of good people working hard to get where we are today, and an incredible team of people.
We'll have that story coming up on Here and Now.
Well, before we bring in Ashley, just have a look at this. This weekend's snowstorm was music to many people's ears in Postville and Makovic. Barry and Holly Amberson shared some videos with us. The communities were completely snowed in, as you can see, but apparently many people didn't mind so much digging out because it means lots of winter activities ahead: snowmobiling, snowshoeing, hunting. Looks really beautiful up there, actually. Thank you so much for sharing those videos. Okay, so let's go live to Ashley, who's in Indian Bay in central Newfoundland. So Ashley, that is a very refreshing perspective on a storm.
It certainly is. 151 centimeters has fallen since Monday. So significant amount of snow. Very, like you said, lots of people are very happy about it. The other thing today, on our drive out, or my drive out this afternoon, absolutely beautiful weather, but boy, was it chilly. Although it's certainly a chilly day out there today, temperatures into the minus single digits for most of the island, except the northern peninsula, where you sat around minus 13 for a good chunk of the day. Same thing up across coastal areas of Labrador, but to the west, temperatures much cooler into the minus 20s. The other factor today was just how windy it is. If you take a look at the current wind gusts, anywhere from 50 to as much as 80 kilometers per hour for a good chunk of the island and up across Labrador. A little less than that, but still gusting around 80 kilometers per hour in Nain. And that is leading to bone-chilling wind chills into the minus 30s up across the Big Land and into the minus teens across most of the island this evening. Now, if we take a look at what's going on, we've got that area of low pressure still offshore there. That is what's bringing us those gusty winds, especially that ridge of high pressure to the west. And the thing is, these winds really aren't going anywhere, at least through tonight anyway. We still have some onshore flurries happening thanks to that colder air as well for the west coast of the island, and then a few flurries for southern areas of the island as well. Again, that really not moving too much tonight as far as the potential is concerned. As you take a look at the future tracker, we should see some clearing skies or clear skies through areas of central and the west coast. But again, the flurry activity is certainly possible along southern areas of the island. And then as far as we get into tomorrow morning, looking like an absolutely beautiful cold night up across Labrador with temperatures into the minus 20s, minus 28 in Lad City tonight. Across the island, temperatures will dip into the minus teens. Again, breezy conditions with west or northwest winds gusting to 60 kilometers per hour. Flurry potential along the south coast, and then temperatures will be sitting into the minus single digits. As we head into tomorrow, really not a whole lot to talk about weather-wise. Another beautiful afternoon as a ridge of high pressure holds tight. We do have some flurries moving in, though, for the western portion of Labrador, and then eventually some clouds will be on the increase. And again, that is ahead of our next weather maker, which is set to move in through Thursday. Temperatures tomorrow looking lovely again, but cold, minus single digits. The story with the winds in the morning a bit breezy, but they will ease as we head into the afternoon hours. Up across Labrador, generally into the minus teens, to the north, otherwise between minus 9 to minus 10. But again, looking like a beautiful day. The other thing to note, with those winds staying up in the morning, we are still looking at the potential for some cold wind chills through the day. Wind chills feeling more like the minus 20s as you get up tomorrow morning. And then even into the afternoon, we're looking at those temperatures into the minus single digits, but those wind chills into the minus teens. Now, looking ahead to our next weather maker, as we look ahead to our Thursday forecast, that ridge of high pressure in place for tomorrow. But by the time we get into Thursday evening, early afternoon into the evening, we're looking at that snow starting. It looks like we could see the potential for some extended periods of freezing rain in the mix as well as this area of low pressure moves in. Most of eastern Newfoundland at this point should see that transition to rain. Much as 20 to 30 millimeters is certainly possible, but it is that freezing rain potential that I'm watching for areas like Terra Nova, Clarenville, potentially even into Gander, where you'll sit in more than likely some ice pellets and some snow west of Gander. This should fall all as snow. But then we look ahead into Saturday, the other potential for some rain. This one looking more widespread across the island, bringing some snow to portions of Labrador. We'll get into the long range forecast when I come back in a little bit. Yeah, so long range forecast certainly has lots of weather in it. And, the weather has been lovely for at least the kickoff of the Winter Carnival here in CWT in Indian Bay. And joining me now is Joanne Ackerman. She is the co-chair of the festival. And so you're not currently living in Newfoundland, but
we come home every year for the Winter Carnival.
Because it's one of your favorite things.
It's one of my favorite things.
So can you give us a little bit of a background on when you started with the festival and why?
I started back in 2016 as my kids got older and I could come back and enjoy some time with my dad and other family members. And I loved it so much. It was such a great time to just get together with everyone.
And that's, can you tell me a little bit about why the festival started in the first place?
It started 30 years ago. A group of individuals got together to build on the community spirit.
Which is very important and very alive and well out here.
Yes.
Having dinner, like I said, the Italian night tonight, there are hundreds of people.
Hundreds, yes, over 200 there.
And so what's going on tonight?
Tonight is the Italian night with a dinner and a live band.
Yeah, and so there are lots of activities going on throughout the week. Can you give us a little preview as to what everybody's going to experience through the week?
There's tomorrow morning, there's breakfast with the school. Elementary kids will come to the Lion Center for breakfast. We will have on Thursday, we have a night hike. We have another dinner. There's lots of meals in our week. As well, we will have Carnival Bingo because that's always a given. And then Saturday, we will do a snowmobile safari and actually get the opportunity. They're having a grand opening of a warm-up shelter that was done through the Kittiwake Snowmobile Association. And then we will have a carnival dance on Saturday night, and Sunday morning will be a breakfast, and we will have church to end the ceremonies and fireworks Sunday night.
Wow. So yes, lots going on. Thank you so much for joining me and telling me all about that. We do have a little bit more coming up a little later on the show to talk about exactly how this all started. We'll talk about that a little later on here now.
I would say that we have tripled in numbers over the last 2 years.
SWAP has seen a skyrocketing demand for supplies like drug testing strips and naloxone kits. There's also a growing concern about potential overdose deaths and a tainted drug supply. What the AIDS Committee is doing to tackle the problem, coming up.
CBC is highlighting Black changemakers from Atlantic Canada who are making a difference, inspiring others and shaping the future. This year, we are asking you to help us identify Black changemakers who are bringing positive change to your community. So, nominate someone today.
I'm from Sydney, Nova Scotia, and I'm a Black changemaker.
I'm a Black changemaker.
And I'm a Black changemaker.
A local advocacy group that offers safer drug use supplies is seeing demand triple across the province. The AIDS Committee supplies drug testing strips, naloxone kits, and clean needles. Now, there were 5 sudden deaths in the past week alone that police believe are connected to drug overdoses. And as concern grows about a tainted drug supply in the province, government is beefing up funding to the AIDS Committee from $640,000 to $1 million. I spoke with Executive Director Gerard Yetman this afternoon.
We have been experiencing overdoses for the last number of years. Altogether in Canada since 2016, we've lost 40,000 people to overdoses. So as, I guess as an intervention in harm reduction, the government has supported us with this $360,000 because we're delivering drug testing strips to the community. These testing strips, so far we've actually distributed over 200,000 of them, which they are $1 a strip. So, but this is a comprehensive decision that really we made through the development of the mental health and addiction strategy with the province. So basically, based on the data that we're able to get from the community, we're able to identify what tainted drugs are out there and how many strips are going to be required for individuals.
So I guess there are different kinds of drug users out there. There are people who use on a daily basis, and then you have people who might just keep it to the weekend, the kind of weekend warrior kind of situation. Can you talk about the dangers associated specifically with that kind of drug use?
Well, you know, the dangers are very similar to that of alcohol or any other drug. Getting that message out there to people who are using drugs is to go slow and use small, because you don't have the tolerance level. And if you don't have, if you're a weekend warrior and you certainly haven't built up your tolerance to these toxic drugs that are out there right now. So, you know, the message that we send to people who do not use on a regular basis, and as you refer to them, weekend warriors, is make sure that you test your drug first. And even if you test a drug and the drug doesn't show that it contains, you still should use small amounts to make sure that your drug is safe to use. Because like I said, not all of the analogs can be picked up in the strips. So everybody should use small and build up. So yeah, we've been getting those out into the community. We've been sending these to people via the mail and encouraging them basically to use these strips and get back to us when they need more.
Can you talk about the demand for swap services right now? What sort of demand are you seeing across the province?
The increase, basically, I would say that we have tripled in numbers over the last 2 years. We are estimating that approximately anywhere to 6,000 to 7,000 Newfoundlanders and Labradorians are accessing the swap supplies. Now, in saying that, they're not all here in St. John's. So basically, we have 3 swap sites across Newfoundland. We have one in Corner Brook, Clarenville, Bonavista, and here in St. John's. But we have 60 satellites throughout the province. That includes community-based organizations, pharmacies, and folks that we call natural helpers. So these are people who will reach out and get supplies for people who are afraid to do so, or afraid of, for many, many reasons, stigma and discrimination. So we have a lot of natural helpers throughout this province as well. So looking at the 60 sites and the 3 swap sites, our estimate is between 6,000 to 7,000 people are accessing.
Well, Gerard Yetman, thank you so much for your thoughts on this. A lot of really important information. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Being the chief has been a blessing for me here in many ways, and I thank God every day that I was allowed to do this long.
The outgoing chief is giving up at least part of his duties.
He has laid a tremendous foundation, and I could only see us going forward and being prosperous.
That story coming up on Here and Now.
The joys of swimming outdoors in Newfoundland and Labrador all year long. Watch Outdoor Dipping, Sunday at 11:30 and Monday at 7.
For the better part of 50 years, Mi'kmaq Joe has been fighting for Mi'kmaq First Nation. And as you're about to see, the former chief has never been afraid to make a bold move. The longtime leader announced his retirement last month, and Cotton River has since elected a new administrative chief. But as Here Now's Troy Turner tells us in this special report, Joe says there's still plenty left to do.
It's a typical weekday in Cotton River. Kids are in school, and businesses see a steady stream of customers come and go. Mi'kmaq Joe is a fixture in this community, but as a teen, he couldn't wait to get out.
When I left there was, roads were trails. I wanted to go somewhere, and I was only 16 years old. My father said, "Well, you're too young to go anywhere. You've only lived in this community, and you've been surrounded by family all your life, and you're leaving to go somewhere God knows where." And he said, I'm afraid that somebody's going to kill you. I couldn't figure out why he had that fear, but I guess he must have known something about what the rest of the world looked like.
Suitcase in hand, little money in his pocket, he went looking for work and new experiences across the country.
I wanted a taste of everything and see what it felt like. I worked on the railroad, I worked underground, I worked on a ranch in Alberta, and I went out picked commercial fishermen on the dragger, and every one of those experiences have been a part of my education, if you want to call it that, over the years.
When he came home, joining the band council was a natural next step. The then chief saw Joe's potential.
So I worked with my uncle, who was the chief at the time, very closely, and he said a number of times, well, you're going to be the next chief. Yeah. And I said, well, if that's what it is, that's what it is. Yeah. That was it, not any more than that. But unfortunately, he passed away just before Christmas in a terrible car accident, and that was a hard time. And it passed away in a time when we was fighting the provincial government for funding.
Back in 1983, more than $800,000 of federal funding for Mi'kmaq was being held by the province, tied up for a year. Government wanted to take the $60,000 for administrative fees, but Joe had had enough. He and 80 others chartered a bus.
We had no money, and I basically told the community, I'm going to St. John's, I'm going to get our money back. I remember one older woman told me I was crazy, that I was stupid, your poor old uncle couldn't do it, and how you think you're going to do it? I said, well, we can always try. We put a padlock on the minister's door and said, until we get our funds, we're not going to open this door. We had lots of baloney along, of course. It was ready for a long stay. It didn't last a long 4 hours, and we then staged a hunger strike, or a fast, whatever you want to call it, for 7-8 days or something like that. And eventually the federal government got involved, and funding started to flow to Cotton River. And from that, we started to build a community around that, because that team of people that went to St. John to support that time was part of our team, beginning of a team. And they stayed around for all those years, most of them.
For Rod Jador, it was a turning point. Just a teenager at the time, he saw the community take charge of its own affairs.
That was a huge step forward for us in claiming our Indigenous inherent rights. I know myself, as a person, we were a welfare family, so now most families have a job through employment services or through trades or other professions. So we're much more financially stable, but I think culturally and traditionally we're much more comfortable in who we are. And being a Mi'kmaq person wasn't something that you proclaimed outwardly. But now kids are much more accepting and celebratory of who they are as Mi'kmaq people.
Now, Jador's the director of education at St. Anne's School.
We teach Mi'kmaq language from K to 9. We have Mi'kmaq studies in grade 10, and we supplement Mi'kmaq language, culture, and tradition throughout the curriculum where we can. So that sense of who we are as Mi'kmaq people is much stronger, and it's celebrated. And good leaders aren't necessarily born. From their experience and from their life experience, they develop leadership. And we were fortunate to have Chief Joe in that position, and the leaders before him. He has laid a tremendous foundation, and I could only see us going forward and being prosperous, being more aware of who we are as Indigenous people, and asserting our rights. So I have tremendous hope for our community, and it's because we have the role models and leadership that have led us there. So Chief Joe will be missed tremendously, but his impact will be felt forever.
Mardina Joe runs the Glen John Arts and Crafts Center and spent years working alongside the chief on council. She still remembers how it used to be.
When I was growing up, even first when I got married, you know, we never had any lights, you know, no electricity. We had to use the kerosene lamps and stuff like that, which was hard. And big changes that we have from back then to now, we've come like self-sufficient and able to run our own businesses and be able to take care of the people, you know, our own people, and you know, like, and that make you feel so good when you can help somebody. People were kind of hesitant about being called a Indian or a Native, right? So, but since that, everybody is involved. Like, it's a lot of involvement in the culture part of it. And I'm really happy.
Mizell Joe knows there's still work to be done here. And in his role as traditional chief, he'll continue sharing his culture. We'll keep offering guidance.
You're not there yet. It's one thing to get to a stage where you say you're a model community. It's another thing to stay there. So it requires a lot more work for us to build on that and to be a model community in many ways. Be thankful that we have what we have. It didn't come easy. I took a lot of good people working hard to get where we are today, and an incredible team of people. Being the chief has been a blessing for me here in many ways. I thank God every day that I was allowed to do this long.
Of course, the work will continue for Mizell Joe as cultural chief here, and he'll work on such files as the repatriation of artifacts, as well as advancing truth and reconciliation. Troy Turner, CBC News, Miakapig First Nation, Conn River.
We have lots more coming up live from CWT Indian Bay, including the forecast with some messy weather on the way. We'll have all of that coming up in a bit.
Okay, we're going to get to Ashley's weather in just a moment. She's in Centerville, Wareham, Trinity, and Indian Bay tonight. As we heard from co-organizer Joanne Ackerman a little earlier, there are about 200 people inside a hall there for dinner and music, and they come from all over the area. We met some founding members of the Winter Carnival a little earlier today. Here's how it all got started.
This is home. And when I came back here, I thought, well, maybe we should try have a winter carnival here. There had to be meals, of course, in a carnival. Any carnival is meals. And a variety show. Things related to the winter, like snow sculptures and skating. It's not hard to get people to get involved, you know. It's because of the variety of items that we have in our winter carnival. We got something there for all ages, really, from the smallest to the oldest, you know. Like you said, that we have people in their 90s coming to the variety show and sitting there for 3 hours and saying, my dear, I could take another half hour.
Yeah, I'm sure we'd like to thank all those people that have supported us, you know, in the carnivals.
We just had to try to bring people together to support our ideas, and that didn't seem to be a problem because there's always what I call an army of volunteers here. So if the volunteerism continues as it is today, you know, it could go on for 100 years. But, you know, it's not for us to say. It's actually for the next generation, I guess, to take on.
Yeah, and we were so happy to hear that two younger people stepped up and got really involved, and they brought some fresh ideas too.
All right, we were hoping to throw to Ashley, who's live out there tonight, but we're having a few technical difficulties, so let's have a listen to her weather forecast.
Well, the good thing is that most of Wednesday will be quiet, but we do have our next weather maker moving in, and that is going to bring some clouds to start through the overnight, and eventually the system will move in as we head into the afternoon hours on Thursday. Starting at snow, it shouldn't amount to much for eastern Newfoundland, but then it will change over to the potential for some freezing rain for a good chunk of the afternoon, and then eventually change over to rain as we head into Thursday evening. Now through Central, you'll likely see a mix of some ice pellets in there as well, as our temperatures will sit into the minus single digits, and then up across Labrador, temperatures will be quite chilly as well with that snow. So by Thursday evening, we'll see that track a little bit further north. The potential for freezing rain exists through the night, or through the evening hours rather, and into the first part of Friday for areas like Clarenville, potentially even Terra Nova. Bonavista may see that as well. But again, eastern areas like the Avalon and potentially even the Burin Peninsula will be into rain by the time we get into Friday. And that will continue right through the afternoon, eventually tapering off as we get into the evening hours. Now, up across Labrador, you're just looking at some flurry activity for your Friday evening. And even to the north as well, as our next system moves in and will eventually bring some snow to central portions of Labrador for Friday as well. Now, temperatures are going to warm up, minus single digits for those of you up across the Big Land, anywhere from -2 to -7. And then for the island, take a look at those temperatures, 0 to as much as 6 degrees, which is why we're going to see that change over to rain for the eastern portion of the island. Now, there's a little bit of discrepancy in just what we're going to see as far as the track of the system. So if we do see any shift, either way, it will bring that potential for freezing rain or even ice pellets a little bit further, either east or west. So definitely going to have to keep an eye on that. But at this point, we are looking at, you know, potentially upwards of 10 to 20 centimeters of a snow ice pellet mixture. And then again, that risk of some freezing rain. So certainly going to want to keep an eye on that forecast. Temperatures will stay above 0 for St. John's and eastern Newfoundland as we get into Sunday. And then for central Newfoundland, we'll see that warm up by Saturday, dropping again into Sunday. Same thing for western Newfoundland. And then up across the Big Land, you're looking at your temperatures up to 0 by Saturday, dropping big time by the time we get into Sunday. And then for the western portion of Labrador, your temperatures will be back down to the minus teens. We've seen a lot of snow in the east. That is no surprise to see a picture like this. Sammy and his Zoomy track. Thank you so much to Suzette for sharing that great photo with us. And if you have any weather photos that you would like to share with us, you can send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Oh, that is absolutely adorable. Love the Zoomy track there. Yeah, another round of weather coming. We were hoping to check back in with Ashley there, but we're having some technical trouble. As I mentioned, she's out in Centerville, Wareham, Trinity, and Indian Bay tonight for their winter carnival. So hopefully she will have a grand time tonight at the Italian night that they're having in their town hall there. So that's it for us tonight. Thank you so much for joining us, and hope you can join us again tomorrow night. Good night.
CBC is highlighting Black changemakers from Atlantic Canada who are making a difference, inspiring others and shaping the future.
I don't need to change Canada. I just need to change Fredericton.
Got into politics kind of just to show people that, you know, we need a voice too from the other side of the table.
Education is a life-changing opportunity, and there is joy in just accomplishing that.
Last year, individuals across Atlantic Canada received recognition for making positive impact through large and small actions.
I try to show up fully as myself. I speak with my whole chest, and I just hope that when I'm entering this space, it inspires others to be who they are.
I'm committed to the idea of making sure marginalized, racialized, indigenous groups are actually at the table where decisions are being made.
We hope that any small change we can make, anything that we can do to have the future generations and kids not experience racism, not experience hatred.
This year, we are asking you to help us identify Black change makers who are bringing positive change to your community. So, nominate someone today.
I'm from Sydney, Nova Scotia, and I'm a Black change maker.
I'm a Black change maker.
And I'm a Black change maker.